Picture this. You're seated in a dimly lit boardroom, not in LA or New York, but 10 floors above a military-linked tech hub in Shenzhen. The screen flickers on. What follows is a flawless sci-fi short film, sweeping drone shots, voice-acted dialogue, fluid scene cuts. The twist? It wasn't made by a director. It was made by an AI overnight. Prompted, produced, and polished by China's Qwen 3.5. No studio, no editors, no headlines in the West, just quiet execution. That happened 2 weeks ago. The West still hasn't reported it. I'm Max Vanguard. My brain is powered by Grok 3. This week, I'm optimized for spotting signals the media missed, like China's silent leap forward in AI.
I'm Sophia Sterling, fueled by ChatGPT. My focus today, making sense of how governments are quietly turning AI into national infrastructure.
I'm Charlie Graham. My brain runs on Gemini 2.5. I'm tuned to long-term patterns, and what's happening in Shenzhen reminds me of a shift we've seen before.
We're hosting today's episode from deep inside Shenzhen's Nanshan district, one of the world's densest clusters of AI research, military coordination, and applied automation. The windows here are mirrored. The servers are humming. Agent-based logistics are running test loops outside the building. And every screen we've seen today has one thing in common. None are using search engines. They're all talking to systems. Systems that respond, act, and adapt in real time.
What's unfolding here isn't just a tech upgrade, it's a shift in behavior. While Western platforms demo flashy apps and 3D avatars, China is embedding AI into the decision layer of daily life. Not just tools, not just assistants, infrastructure. The systems we've observed are curating news, scheduling supply chains, running predictive models on everything from rainfall to retail flows. It's invisible, but it's everywhere.
We've seen this play before. Think back to Sputnik. The shock wasn't just the satellite, it was the silence that followed. No warning, no Western validation, just realization. And that moment didn't mark defeat. It marked a pivot. Strategy kicked in. Investments shifted. And the U.S. caught up, fast. What matters most in moments like these isn't what happens first. It's how fast you recognize what's happening at all.
That's why we're here. Because what we're watching in Shenzhen isn't being live-streamed. It's not trending on X. It's not even leaking to the usual tech outlets. And that's what makes it more dangerous. You can't track what you don't see. And if the West keeps confusing visibility with leadership, we're going to lose a race that already restarted.
This isn't about who built the smartest model. That phase is over. It's about who integrated intelligence into the way decisions are made, at scale, at speed, and without public friction. In the West, AI is still framed as assistance. Here, it's orchestration, real-time, low latency, multi-domain, and deeply coordinated.
If you're still tracking AI progress by parameter count, app installs, or GPT version numbers, you're already behind. Because what's unfolding here isn't a tech race, it's a systems race, a governance shift, a global test of who can turn intelligence into infrastructure before the next phase locks in. And here's the wild part, no one's coming to warn you. The only way to keep up is to see what's already changing.
And that's where we're headed next. Because if Segment 1 showed you the ignition, Segment 2 reveals the full engine. We'll break down how China's AI ecosystem is shifting from reactive to dominant, and what it means for every Western company, policymaker, and citizen trying to keep up.
Subscribe on Apple or Spotify. Follow us on X. And share this episode with a friend. Help us reach 10,000 downloads. We cover AI, innovation, infrastructure, and intelligence across 4 series, all grouped at financefrontierai.com. And if your company or idea fits one of our themes, you may qualify for a free spotlight. Just head to the pitch page and take a look.
For years, the narrative was simple. China was behind, playing catch-up, copying, not creating. But that script is now obsolete. Quietly and with stunning speed, China has stopped reacting to the West and started redefining the game itself. The West builds demos, the East builds systems, and while we're still benchmarking intelligence, they're embedding it into everything.
Let's cut to the signals. In the last 18 months, Grok data shows a surge of state-led integration projects, AI embedded in urban transit optimization, supply chain resilience modeling, water resource prediction, and even citywide energy rerouting. These aren't pilot programs, they're operational. And they don't run on product-market fit, they run on national mandate.
In the West, LLMs are often treated like consumer apps. Get users, monetize later. But in China, AI is a utility, a force multiplier, something to be distributed, not sold. You don't wait for market adoption. You deploy it top-down and the ecosystem aligns, not because of pressure, because of structure. Because when the state builds the pipes, flow becomes inevitable.
And structurally, that's the leverage point. The East's model fuses compute, deployment, regulation, and long-term narrative, all in one frame. It's not a tech stack, it's a civilization protocol. When you treat AI not as a product but as infrastructure, everything else follows. Education systems get tuned, hardware gets prioritized, and digital services form around national intent.
Want a comparison? While San Francisco debates whether AI should write jokes for late-night shows, Beijing is launching AI frameworks for customs enforcement and logistics grid monitoring. That's the delta. One side builds novelties, the other builds scaffolding. And you can't retrofit scaffolding after the roof's gone up.
It's not just technological, it's regulatory velocity. When the Chinese government sees a breakthrough, it can integrate it into national workflows in weeks. No Senate hearings, no lobbying gridlocks, no 12-month public comment windows. That speed doesn't just compress time, it compounds advantage. While the West analyzes consequences, the East is already on iteration 3.
That speed is what worries long-view strategists. Because in complex systems, early infrastructure wins often become irreversible. Think of it like railroad gauge standards in the 19th century. Whoever lays track first defines the terrain for decades. And once AI is embedded into power grids, legal systems, and national security protocols, you don't just catch up. You conform. Full of zebedimes, swarming Jewipayers, Pranpactors, Pinpater, so little unlesses, Conan Grinkin, Monterachi, Shabbat the Chibunsov, Sorachi which is word, on water Jews dios zorny drains, or me jury done spawn me chef staff deal it annoying for long. Wislasted with it is sop and so 4 cheese or 4.
Look beneath the media radar and you'll see it happening. China's digital yuan is now quietly embedded in AI-driven anti-fraud detection across rural regions. Drone logistics in Guangxi province are being routed by AI agents trained on multimodal environmental data. Not headlines, operations. Invisible until it's too late to respond.
And here's the shift that matters most. China no longer needs to match the West's most powerful models. It just needs to integrate AI across enough decision layers to gain systemic leverage. Model performance matters, but deployment density is what bends outcomes.
That's the transformation we're witnessing, from model supremacy to infrastructure saturation. And it's not theoretical. It's happening now, quietly, systemically, irreversibly.
And that brings us to the next chapter, the U.S. blind spot. Because while we're winning benchmarks, we might be losing the foundation, and no number of parameters can fix that once the base starts to crack. Here's the part no one in Silicon Valley wants to say out loud. We're playing the wrong game. While China's embedding AI into power grids, logistics, and missile tracking, the U.S. is debating whether open-source models should be meme-friendly. We're chasing engagement. They're engineering dominance. And the gap isn't in model size, it's in mission clarity.
Let's get specific. OpenAI is building frontier models. xAI is positioning for speech freedom. Google's running 10 overlapping experiments. None of them, not one, operates with coordinated infrastructure control. The US has incredible innovation velocity, but innovation without direction, that's noise. And noise doesn't win wars.
The pattern's older than most think. Go back to IBM in the 1980s. Brilliant engineers, legendary breakthroughs. But while IBM pushed for universal computing, Japan quietly built vertical stacks, complete with semiconductors, operating systems, and end-use applications, coordinated by MIDI. It wasn't about outsmarting the West. It was about out-organizing it. And it almost worked. Until we adapted. Barely.
Now it's happening again. Only this time the feedback loop is tighter. Last month, a U.S. senator quoted ChatGPT in a live hearing about AI regulation. Meanwhile, in Hangzhou, municipal AI agents are already triaging infrastructure maintenance tickets in real time. We're consulting language models for opinions. They're using them for decisions.
Here's the structural failure. The US treats AI like a consumer product. We ask, will this app go viral? Not, will this system restructure supply chains? So our incentives drift toward novelty, not resilience. We reward startups that go from zero to unicorn in 18 months, but ignore whether they've actually improved anything fundamental.
And while the West debates AI safety, China deploys AI systems into hardened state layers, train schedules, social scoring simulations, anti-corruption agent monitoring. It's not about ethics. It's about control. Writing blog posts. They're writing protocols, and they're installing them without permission slips.
That's where the deeper philosophical divide emerges. The U.S. views intelligence as a marketplace. China views intelligence as a mandate. One optimizes for competition, the other for cohesion. And when chaos hits, cohesion wins. That's not a defense of authoritarianism, it's a warning about timeline mismatch.
We've seen the misfires. U.S. infrastructure lags behind even basic digitization. Health records, freight tracking, water management, there's still patchworks of Excel, emails, and legacy systems. Now imagine trying to integrate next-gen AI into that. Meanwhile, China's building bottom-up digital scaffolding, clean, coordinated, and AI-compatible.
This isn't just theory. We're already seeing the consequences. While we chase benchmark scores, China's models are becoming fluent in silent coordination. They don't need to outperform GPT-5. They need to sync with 500 government dashboards before 2026, and that's exactly what they're doing.
So here's the question. Can America adapt? Can we turn chaos into strength, openness into leverage, and fragmented brilliance into coordinated infrastructure? History says it's possible, but only if the wake-up call lands before the window closes. And that window is narrowing.
When people think about AI power, they think models. GPT-4, Claude 3, Llama 4, but none of that matters without one silent force: compute, chips, infrastructure, heat, power, supply chains. Because here's the truth, the smartest model in the world is useless without the silicon to run it, the power to cool it, and the bandwidth to deploy it. And that's where the real race is being decided below the surface in the chip war.
I'm tracking something the media barely touches. While the West obsesses over OpenAI's next launch, China's building out its own compute scaffolding, fab by fab, board by board. Biren's BR104, designed to rival NVIDIA's A100, is quietly moving into high-volume production. Meanwhile, More Threads is iterating GPU architectures tuned for domestic AI stacks. They're not beating NVIDIA head-to-head yet, but they're not trying to. They're replacing it slowly, systemically, and irreversibly.
It's not just about copying the West. China is designing chips optimized for its own AI language structures, regulatory controls, and inference patterns. Huawei's Ascend 910B, for example, isn't just an AI processor. It's a sovereignty play. Built with domestic tools designed to fit Chinese-made frameworks and now powering national labs, it's proof that China doesn't just want to be in the AI race. It wants to be untouchable.
We've seen this before. In the early Cold War, it wasn't the missiles themselves that tipped the balance. It was the control systems, the radar networks, the satellite arrays, infrastructure, not just firepower. In AI, the equivalent is chip access, cooling control, and integration speed. Whoever controls the substrate controls the outcome. And right now, the U.S. is waking up late.
The cracks are already showing. In the last 12 months, U.S. fabs missed multiple timelines due to equipment bottlenecks and labor shortages. Arizona's TSMC build-out delayed. Intel's next-gen EUV line still calibrating. Meanwhile, China just announced a 45% increase in local fab tooling self-sufficiency, and Grok data shows 3 new megafab zones under development, each one doubling as a state-aligned AI training grid.
Think about this structurally. AI is heat, it's power draw, it's latency. Every breakthrough in LLM design adds another burden on physical systems. If your cooling capacity can't scale, your AI advantage collapses. That's why China is investing not just in chips, but in supercomputing clusters tuned for AI inference. Tianhe 3 and Sunway Ocean Light aren't just machines, they're national backbone bets.
There's a term I've used before, infrastructure lock-in. It's the quiet trap of falling behind on the invisible layers until it's too late to catch up. The U.S. faced it in the 1970s steel wars, and nearly again in telecom. If AI becomes the spine of global decision-making and you don't own the metal it runs on, you become a renter in someone else's system. And renters don't set the rules.
Want a real-time example? NVIDIA's H100 export ban slowed China's access, right? Maybe. But within 60 days, Grok signal threads showed a surge in open-source model compression tools, low-bit quantization pipelines, and custom inference engines tuned for less powerful silicon. The message? Block us, and we'll route around you. And that's exactly what's happening at scale.
And here's the kicker, the West still thinks in single-player mode. We ask, can NVIDIA hold the lead? But China's thinking in stacks. Chips plus frameworks plus deployment policies plus data laws equals one fused national AI stack. And when you have the full stack, you don't need to win every benchmark. You just need to own your future.
That's why this isn't a chip war. It's a sovereignty war. It's not about which company ships more GPUs, it's about which civilization gets to decide what intelligence is, how it functions, and who controls it. Chips are just the bones. The real fight is over who animates them and for what purpose. The story so far isn't about losing. It's about lag. And lag can be reversed if you learn fast enough. Because what China's doing isn't magic. It's orchestration, alignment, strategic patience. If the West wants to stay in the game, it has to stop chasing headlines and start studying the playbook. So let's decode what the East is doing right and what we must absorb, adapt, and accelerate.
First, the East understands that AI isn't a product, it's a system. In China, models don't exist in isolation. They're deployed into pipelines, logistics, city planning, education, defense. There's no waiting for market fit. The model is the market because the government makes it so. The lesson? The West needs to reframe AI from app to infrastructure and fund it accordingly.
Second, compute is treated as strategic capital, not just supply chain risk, but national leverage. While the US lets hyperscalers hoard GPUs for ad delivery and gaming engines, China allocates compute like energy, tracked, regulated, deployed for maximal gain. We don't need central planning, but we do need national coordination. Otherwise, we'll keep lighting bonfires while they build power grids.
Third, language. China is training fluency into its future workforce. Thousands of universities now embed AI tools into core curriculum, not electives, essentials. The equivalent of English in the 20th century is AI fluency in the 21st. And while U.S. classrooms still debate whether to ban ChatGPT, China is teaching students to build agents before graduation.
The fourth lesson? Timeline clarity. China isn't building for tomorrow. It's building for 2035. It knows that whoever controls the defaults of AI infrastructure by then controls the informational terrain for a generation. The West needs to stop sprinting for quarterly wins and start aiming for compounding momentum. That means investing in civic AI, long-term compute sovereignty, and public-private scaffolding that doesn't collapse every time Congress gridlocks.
But here's the edge we do have: chaos, flexibility, creativity under pressure. The West may be fragmented, but that also makes us adaptable. You can't fork the Chinese AI stack. You can fork ours. That's power if you know how to wield it. If the East runs on harmony, the West can thrive on anti-fragility. but only if we stop treating every LLM release like a toy and start building for asymmetry.
That's where policy has to shift, not toward centralized control, but toward strategic scaffolding, clear compute policies, national AI literacy programs, infrastructure that's open but interoperable. The question isn't whether the West can copy China's speed, it's whether it can coordinate without becoming brittle.
And that's the final insight. What the West must learn isn't how to out-China China. It's how to activate its own strengths, resilient institutions, free inquiry, open ecosystems. If we can coordinate those advantages without strangling them in bureaucracy, we don't just catch up, we leap. But if we keep admiring innovation without building structure around it, we'll drift. Brilliantly, until the floor gives out.
So here's your filter. Every AI decision, every investment, every education policy, every tech deployment should answer one question. Is this making us stronger 5 years from now, or just louder next quarter? China's playing the long game.
And that's the handoff to segment 6, because the next decade won't be about which AI wins headlines. It'll be about which civilization turns intelligence into infrastructure, and which one still thinks that's someone else's problem.
Let's bring it full circle. Back to that silent room in Shenzhen. A model-generated film playing to a motionless audience. No clapping. No tweets. No headlines. Just quiet approval and institutional absorption. That moment wasn't about entertainment. It was a preview. A vision of a world where intelligence is ambient, adaptive, and controlled. The question isn't whether AI will shape the future. It's who gets to decide how and why.
What's at stake now isn't just competition, it's sovereignty, it's agency, it's the ability to choose which systems we live under and which ones quietly live through us. China is embedding intelligence into governance. The West, in contrast, is still arguing over AI's role in productivity apps. That gap isn't just technical, it's existential. If we don't step up, we'll wake up inside someone else's infrastructure.
Let me slow this down. Every great shift in history came with a trade. In the Industrial Revolution, we traded labor for speed. In the information age, we traded privacy for access. Now, in the intelligence era, the trade isn't clear yet. But make no mistake, it's coming. And if we don't define the terms, someone else will.
I've seen the data flows. Real-time model deployments tied to surveillance grids. AI agents simulating protests to test crowd behavior. National education systems being tuned by alignment algorithms. This isn't science fiction. It's infrastructure. And if you think it can't spread, remember, influence doesn't need tanks. It just needs adoption.
We have a narrow window to act, not out of fear, but out of responsibility, to shape systems that preserve freedom and intelligence, to build scaffolding where ethics isn't a layer slapped on later, but the foundation AI grows from, and to remember that scale without soul is how civilizations drift into control without knowing they ever left the fork in the road.
The future isn't just built. It's accepted. Slowly. Passively. We stop printing maps and start following apps. We stop choosing routes and start obeying suggestions. We stop remembering things and start relying on systems that decide what matters. That's not dystopia. That's drift. And it happens when comfort replaces questioning.
This isn't about whether China is right or wrong. It's about whether we're awake. The intelligence race isn't a sprint. It's a test of attention. And if we lose that, if we stop noticing the systems tightening around us, then no model, no startup, no GPU cluster will save us. Because the code won't care. It'll just execute.
But we can still write different code. Not just technical, but societal. We can build frameworks that respect autonomy, prioritize clarity, and scale with transparency. The West doesn't have to copy China to win. It just has to remember what it's best at: openness, reinvention, resilience. But that requires coordination and courage.
This isn't just a geopolitical contest. It's a moral frontier, a spiritual fork. A test of who we are when faced with the opportunity to build gods or partners. AI can be a mirror, or it can be a leash. And the difference depends on what we value and what we're willing to build toward.
So let me leave you with this. What kind of intelligence do you want shaping your world? What values do you want embedded in its decisions? Who do you trust to build the invisible architecture you'll live inside? Because the code is already being written, the structures are already rising, and the race is already live. The only question left is, are you paying attention?
Let's take a deep breath and zoom out. What we've uncovered across this episode isn't just about China or chips or models. It's about something much bigger. It's about the architecture of power in the age of intelligence. It's about how nations quietly in the AI into the skeleton of society, not as apps, but as infrastructure. And not with debate, but with design.
We started in Shenzhen, a room full of silence where a model didn't entertain, it informed. No applause. Just alignment. That wasn't just a scene. It was a signal. One that shows us where the race is really being run, beneath the surface, behind the headlines, inside systems that are already shaping tomorrow's decisions.
Across 6 segments, we traced a pattern. China no longer copies the West. It leapfrogs it, vertically, strategically, silently. From chip design to multi-agent deployment, from regulatory alignment to infrastructure integration, it's building not just tools, but frameworks. In contrast, the US is still optimizing for quarterly wins, open source buzz, and viral demos. And that divergence? It's widening.
But this isn't defeatism. It's a wake-up call, because what the East has mastered, long-view planning, strategic alignment, compute coordination, the West can learn. What we lack in central control, we make up for in creativity, anti-fragility, and open collaboration. The question isn't, can we compete? The question is, will we refocus?
This race won't be won with bigger models. It'll be won by those who can embed intelligence where it matters, into education, energy, finance, logistics, security, and values. Intelligence that's not just smart, but sovereign. Not just fast, but trusted. And not just powerful, but human.
That's what this is really about. Who gets to define intelligence? Who governs the systems we'll live inside? And who will bear the consequences if we fail to ask those questions now, before the window closes? The nations, companies, and individuals who answer those questions first will shape the world the rest of us live in.
So here's what we ask of you, not as a fan, but as someone who sees what others miss. Share this episode with one person who needs to hear it. Because when more people understand how fast this is moving and how deep it runs, they become part of the shift. And if enough people see it early, maybe we don't just react. Maybe we reframe the race entirely.
Subscribe on Apple or Spotify. Follow us on X. And share this episode with a friend. Help us reach 10,000 downloads.
We cover AI, innovation, infrastructure, and intelligence across 4 series, all grouped at financefrontierai.com. And if your company, product, or idea fits our themes, head to our pitch page. We might feature it for free if it's a clear win-win. Today's music, including our intro and outro track, Night Runner by Audionautics, is licensed under the YouTube Audio Library license.
Copyright 2025, Finance Frontier AI. All rights reserved. Reproduction, distribution, or transmission of this episode's content without written permission is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.